We're joined now by Chris Howlett, the 3MBS Marathon Artistic Director and Curator. Welcome, Chris.
Morning, Sarah. How are you?
Oh, great. The buzz is fantastic. Chris, you've put in a marathon effort for this event. You've curated the whole program. You're performing this afternoon in Concert 4. You're conducting the kids program at 11 a.m. and I believe it's sold out, and 12:30 p.m. And you've found time to talk to us. Tell us why Beethoven was the choice for this year's marathon.
Look, Beethoven this year, I think it's his birthday, it's his 250th, but also we wanted to, as 3MBS, when we were chatting about the potential composers this year, obviously, there's a lot of suggestions every year. Ligeti didn't make it in this year, but I'm sure maybe next year. But Beethoven he's such a giant of the composers. Every genre that you look at, perhaps with the exception of ballet and opera, he really pushed the genres. If you look at the sonatas, the quartets that we're going to hear today, the trios that we're going to hear today, even starting with the mass that we hear first this morning, he just pushed it so far, and that's why we wanted to showcase that. But also, with an immersion of a marathon, you get to have a chance to really hear the ones that you know, but also the lesser known gems, and that's really, really important when you come to programming a marathon.
You've provided lots of variety in today's program. How did you choose the music from today's events?
Particularly with Beethoven, you sit down and I've got this lovely book that basically has almost all of the composers and a catalogue. It's basically a catalogue of what they perform, what they wrote. And it's amazing, and you look at it, and Beethoven is so thick. He wrote so much different music.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to make sure that over the day, as I was mentioning, there was a selection of his really well-known works, because it is a fundraiser as well, but also they're famous because they're fantastic, but also making sure that there was those lesser-known gems. But also, I wanted to make sure that I showcased Australian performers as well. So that means that you choose certain works to showcase those performers.
Which is what 3MBS does anyway.
Absolutely, every day of the week.
Absolutely. What are some of the works to be performed today which we should especially look out for, do you think?
Well, I mean, if you're looking from a holistic perspective, to hear the 3 different Beethoven quartets is going to be spectacular, particularly performed by Australian String Quartet, Goldner's and Flinders Quartet. For me also, I'm really looking forward to listening to the piano, 2 piano concertos at the first one, the Rondo by Allian, is very rarely played, and then of course the fourth one is fourth concerto that Stefan's performing is very well known. So I'm looking forward to listening to those back to back. I'm also looking forward, I have to admit, because I believe that if you're doing anything large scale, you have to have an educational program. I'm really looking forward to the educational kids concerts, because the joy on those faces is just, is one of the reasons why as an artist you get up out of bed every morning.
Absolutely. Can you tell the listeners a bit about how an event such as today's is organised?
Well, it's a team effort. I mean, that's absolutely paramount. We sit down after each year and we look at the feedback, and we work out what worked and what didn't work from our perspective, but also from the audience's perspective and the subscriber's perspective. And then we start from there, and we choose the composer, and then I put together the program, and we will start working with the general manager, Adrian, the programming manager, the sponsorship manager, and the philanthropy manager, and of course the board, looking at it holistically, where the strengths are from any composer, where the weaknesses might be, and then sort of building from there. And then of course, all of this wouldn't happen without the broadcast team, because we can have the very best Beethoven marathon or Ligeti marathon or any marathon, but if it's not being broadcast, then it's not really 3MBS, is it?
What can you tell us about the masterclasses that we'll be having this year?
Yeah, this is year 2 of the masterclasses. I think when we were looking at it, just as we were talking about strengths and weaknesses of the marathon as a whole, we've had the kids' concerts now. I integrated them about 4 years ago, but there was a bit of a gap. So we had the preschool and the covered, and up to about age 10. With kids' concerts, but there was nothing for the high school students or the early university students before they got to the point where they could perhaps be on the main stage. So we looked at that and thought, that's where we need to go, and we've got Andrea and we've got Howard Penny and a whole stack of leading teachers coming in to look after that gap.
You've played at every marathon except the Beethoven because it was only piano.
It's true. No
What
one
are
would
you
like me
playing
to
today?
hear me play
in
piano.
concert for?
I'm playing with songmakers the Scottish songs. He wrote so many Scottish songs. There's about 120 of them, but we've just selected 3 songmakers and with their emerging artists. So again, that emerging thing comes through.
Chris, thank you very much for everything you do and have done for 3MBS over the years. Your passion and contribution have been enormous. We'll let you go now to prepare for the first of your kids' sessions.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
We now cross to the stage.
No, we've got something to do. Before that, we
Oh,
better
I'm
talk about
sorry.
the work we're going to hear,
Oh, yes,
because
of
we've got a
course.
couple of minutes before Chris Howlett goes and does another extraordinary turn and introduces the concert today. We should just say something about the work we're going to hear today. The Beethoven composed the Mass in C major, Opus 86, to a commission from Prince Nikolaus Esterházy in 1807. The Mass, scored for 4 vocal soloists, choir and orchestra, was premiered that year by the Prince's musical forces in Eisenstadt, and Beethoven performed parts of it in his 1808 concert featuring the premieres of 4 major works, including his 5th Symphony. That must have been an extraordinary concert. Beethoven was fully aware of the tradition that Haydn had established with his masses. Haydn had composed a mass each year for the Esterházy family to celebrate the name day of the prince's wife, and it influenced Beethoven strongly in writing the Mass in C. He confessed in a letter to the prince, and this sounds very unlike Beethoven, "May I just say that I will hand the Mass over to you with great trepidation, as your Serene Highness is accustomed to having the inimitable masterworks of the great Haydn performed." That sounds a little bit more obsequious than we're used to with Beethoven. But unfortunately, Esterházy did not like the Mass and described it as unbearably ridiculous and detestable. To be sure, some of the fault lay in the fact that 4 of the 5 altos were sight reading. That certainly isn't going to be the case in today's performance. Now, we're going to hear the Royal Philharmonic Choir under Andrew Wales, and I should just also introduce the soloist today. The soprano is Zara Barrett, mezzo is Shakira Dugan, the tenor who we've just heard from is Henry Chu, and the bass baritone is Andrew Wales. The bass baritone is Nick Dinopoulos, and as I said, Andrew Wales is the conductor, and of course it'll be the orchestra, the 3MBS orchestra as well. So it's going to be quite a lineup. And Sarah, have you heard the Mass in C before?
I have, but I haven't heard it live. And just to mention, Andrew Wales will be coming in and having a chat with us after the performance, so that'll be something to look forward to later on.
Yes, Andrew joined us last year after the performance we heard at the Dvorak Marathon. The Dvorak Marathon, we heard the Stabat Mater. So I think the Royal Philharmonic Choir have become, again, something of a feature of the opening of the 3MBS Marathon. It is it's a full house. I can see the foyer is gradually emptying, presumably because people are taking their seats,
yes.
and they've turned their mobile phones off, which is, we don't need to say that on air though, do we?
I think we do, actually.
So we're going to hear the Mass in C, and we've heard from the about the wonderful solos we're going to hear. We should also mention the fact that all our musicians today contribute their time and their expertise for nothing. That's an extraordinarily generous contribution that they make to 3MBS. But they've also become part. These marathons have become part of the 3MBS, or the Melbourne music scene over the year. We're very fortunate as well is that we hold this marathon in February, since this is going to be such a big year for Beethoven. we're getting in first with this marathon, and it's an all-day marathon. Sarah, I think we're just about ready to begin.
We now cross to the stage of the Dame Elizabeth Murdoch Hall at the Melbourne Recital Centre, where Chris Howlett, Artistic Director of the Beethoven Marathon, will welcome everyone to the day, followed by our compere, Julie Horton, who'll begin the day's proceedings. Oh, we can hear the stage, everyone's prepared, there's a real buzz in the auditorium, it's quite quiet.
Fabulous day, which is an absolute celebration, not only of the giant that is Beethoven and his works and his life, but also a true celebration of the Melbourne and the Australian art scene. When I put together this program, we have what artistic directors know as a wish list. Those people that you ask and you think 99% chance they'll say no. However, this year they all said yes, which is fantastic, and it's a reflection of the strength of 3MBS. Not only do we have the very best of the Melbourne artists, but also those artists who come from interstate, like Australian String Quartet and the Goldner String Quartet, who realise the importance of 3MBS within the Australian music fabric. It is also a huge celebration and a kudos to what can be done by the power of the volunteer, because today and every day at 3MBS is only made possible by the over 300 to 400 volunteers that make 3MBS tick. Beethoven, as we know, was a huge giant within the composing world. Not only did he advance so many of the genres, with the exception of perhaps opera and ballet, I think he advanced every single genre, the string quartet, the piano trio, even the mass that we're going to hear just this morning. But we also wanted to go further than that. With the marathon, we're able to not only program the works that are regularly performed on the concert stage or on the radio, but also find those lesser-known gems that have fallen off the subscription series, but are absolutely fabulous works. So from an artistic perspective, but also from the whole of 3MBS, welcome to you, everyone in the hall, and for those who are listening online and digital and on the FM station. And I wish you the very best of days. Thank you very much.